Hello world. A year ago we presented our Scripting 101 for Apple Admins webinar, and I'm happy to be back with you again to continue our scripting journey. I'm William Smith, and most every day I work with customers just like you to put together workflows that quite often involve a little bit of scripting. Not only do I help educate my customers, but they educate me too, and I try to pass along what I've learned from them. So after broadly covering some of the basics of scripting in our Scripting 101 webinar, where do we go next with 201? I thought I'd go deep this time into three tools we can use for scripting. I like them because they're simple but powerful at the same time. First, we'll discuss a common need in a lot of scripting, and that's how to write some text to a file and how to read it back later. I'll show you an example where this could be useful. Second, we'll discuss using script parameters in Jamf Pro. Many of my customers don't use script parameters because they quite don't understand what they're all about. I'll show you how they work. Third, let's examine how we can interact with our end users by using dialogs. We'll look at two ways of using dialogs with JamfHelper and osascript. Once we've covered each of these tools, we're going to put them all together into a single script that we can run to provision a Mac through self-service. Then at the end, I'll point you to some resources where you can find more scripting examples that you can experiment with on your own. Before we begin, for those of you new to Jamp, here's a quick summary of what we do. Jamp helps organizations succeed with Apple. Jamp offers a portfolio of enterprise-grade solutions ready to help you tackle authentication, device management, and endpoint protection challenges in the Apple ecosystem. And underpinning it all is Jamf Nation, the world's largest community of Apple administrators with more than 100,000 of your fellow admins on the site ready to help you connect, learn, and grow. For more information, visit jamf.com. All right, let's get started. Sometimes we need to leave information on a Mac so that we have it available for later. For example, we may wish to leave behind a provisioning receipt that lets us know when a Mac was provisioned and who built it. Let's look at a couple of ways we can do this. I'm going to tap Command Spacebar on my keyboard to open Spotlight and search for Terminal. And then I'll use Command plus a few times to make the type a little bit easier to read. You should remember that the echo command from our Scripting 101 webinar allows you to echo or print whatever I say after it. If I say echo hello world and press return, it echoes back hello world. But if I choose, I can echo my message into a text file on my desktop instead by using the greater than sign, which is called a redirection symbol. If the file doesn't exist, the redirection symbol will create it. If I use just one redirection, it overwrites the contents of the file with whatever I'm echoing. And if I use two redirection symbols like I'm doing here, it'll append whatever I'm echoing to the end of the file. And then when I press return, the file appears on my desktop. Now I can select the file and tap spacebar to view it in quick look. Let's do a couple more. Now, I want to add the current date to the file, and to do that, I'm going to use another method we discussed back in our Scripting 101 webinar, which allows me to run a date command and use the results of that command as my echo statement. The %Y, M, and D stand for year, month, and date. And then to save myself a couple of keystrokes, I'm going to use a shortcut $! Which represents the last argument of the previous command to redirect my text into the file. It sure beats having to type the same thing over and over. And then I'll also add a department to the file, and there you see it. When we quick look the file now, all of our text is in there in the order that we added it. And all we need to do to read it out again is to use the cat command followed by the path to the file. Pretty simple. So let's recap a little bit. The echo command echoes or prints whatever we tell it to say. The redirection symbol can take whatever comes before it and redirect it to a file. We can use a command inside a command by putting it into parentheses with a $sign at the beginning. We can save keystrokes by using the shortcut bang dollar to repeat our last argument, and we can use the cat command to read our text file back. The cat command lets us read the entire file, but what if we want just a piece of information from it? For that, we'd have to add a lot more commands to trim down the text into something more usable. So let's look at a different way of doing the same thing. It's a little more complex, but lets us fine-tune our results. I'm going to clear the terminal screen first. This time, we're going to use the defaults command. This is the same command we'd use to readplists in our preferences folder, but we're going to use it to write our own plist and read back information. To start the new file on our desktop, I'll use defaults write and tell it where I want the file. After that, I'll provide a one-word description like technician to indicate the technician who built the computer, and I'll follow that with the name of the technician and press return. The file appears on my desktop, and when we quick look it to view it, it's very different from our first one. The defaults command adds a lot of formatting, but if you look closely, our information's still there. Let's add the date and the department and look at the file again. I'm using the same date command here that I used when we echoed the date into the text file. Again, year, month, day. And I'm going to add the graphics department. Now, when I quick look the file, it shows all three pieces of information. Because this is a plist, each type of information like technician, date, and department is listed as a key, and the value for that type of information is listed below each key. And a nice thing about using defaults is that it automatically alphabetizes my keys. No matter how many I add, they'll be listed in alphabetical order. Again, the plist looks a lot more complex than our first text file, but here's where it shines. I can use defaults read to read the file and then specify technician, date, or department to return the value of just that one item. That's great for something like an extension attribute where I would use this command in a short script to echo the result back to Jamf Pro. Here, I just wanted to read the date, and that's all I got back. So that's two quick ways to write information to a file and then read it back. We'll see these again later on when we put together our provisioning script. Now I want to cover using script parameters in Jamf Pro. Let's clear out the terminal and then we'll move it off to the side. Okay, what exactly are script parameters? I'm going to make a quick script to demonstrate what they are. Here, I'm using Visual Studio Code to write my script today, but you can use most any plain text editor like BBEdit or even TextEdit that comes with your Mac. Just be sure to turn off all the autocorrect settings that turn straight quotes into curly quotes. You only want straight quotes for this. A script editor does this for you automatically. My shebang is ZSH or Z shell, like seashell. I'll add an echo statement, which will just give me an empty line to make things easier to see. Then I'll add another echo statement with parameter variables 1 through 5. Remember, when something in a script begins with a $sign, that's usually an indicator that something is a variable or placeholder for something. I'm going to save my script to the desktop as parameters.zsh. All right, and now in terminal, I'll drag my script into the window and add at the end of it, Mary had a little lamb, and press return. Uh-oh, I'm getting a permissions denied for my script. That's because I forgot a step. Anytime I create a new script file, I have to use a command in terminal called chmod. That makes it executable. Otherwise, terminal thinks it's just a plain text file instead of a script that it can run. I'll type in the word chmod, which means change mode, and then add +X, which makes it executable, and drag my script into the window. Now, when I run my script with Mary had a little lamb, it echoes back, Mary had a little lamb. Now, that's not very exciting, so let's have a little fun. Back in my script, I'm going to add another echo statement. But this time, I'm going to mix up the order of those script variables. Now I'll save, and we'll run the script again in terminal, followed by Mary had a little lamb. The first line looks right, but now the second one is all mixed up. What that's telling us is that each of those number variables in the script, $1, 2, 3, 4, 5, corresponds to the order of the items that we add at the end of the script. Mary is the first word and is $1, had is the second word and is $2, etc. Each of the words in Mary had a little lamb is a script parameter, and we can reference each script parameter by its position following the script. If I change the order of the variables in the script, then the order of the words changes when I run the script. Now that we know that script parameters, what they're all about, how do we use these in Jamf Pro? Let's take a look. I'm going to head over to Jamf Nation now. And then go into its resources area and get a script. In the filter area, I'll search for time zone, and I'm going to download the time zone script. I'm going to open the script file, select the entire contents, and copy. I'll take that over to my Jamf Pro server, click the settings icon in the upper right-hand corner, computer management, and then scripts. I'll make a new script and name it set time zone. Under the script tab, I'll paste the script. And then under the options tab, I'll click into the parameter 4 field and set the label name to something like time zone. This is just a label, a name. I could name it anything that I want, but it makes sense to name it something meaningful. In this case, when I run the script, I'm going to pass the time zone that I want to set in the fourth parameter, or $4. So why do these start with parameter 4 and not 1? If you look very closely at the tiny type just above the parameter labels, you'll see some text that says parameters 1 through 3 are predefined as mount point, computer name, and username. That means Jamf Pro will always send that information as the first 3 parameters with every script, whether the script uses them or not. You don't have control over those parameters, but you do have control over the rest. You have up to 8 more parameters that you can define in any way that you like, starting with parameter 4. After I save, I'm going to head back to the script to get something. In it is this command for listing time zones that I want to copy. I'm going to take this to terminal, enter sudo, which means run with elevated privileges, and then paste it in and press return. This gives me a long list of available time zones in the correct format for the script. And I'm going to choose Chicago, which is representative of the central time zone in the United States, and copy that. It doesn't matter that I don't live in Chicago. The time zone list only includes cities. It doesn't include names like Australian Central Time, China Standard Time, India Standard Time, or US Central Time. You'll need to find a city in your time zone and use that. Now let's go create a policy to run our script. And I'm going to add this to my provisioning category where I already have a few other items. I'll name it Set Central Time Zone. Add it to my provisioning category. And I'm going to set a custom trigger to let me call this policy by a name in a script later. Now, I'll add the script, and this is where I paste in that time zone that I copied from my terminal command. Notice this field is showing the label that we added under the Options tab when we pasted in our script a bit ago. The label is telling me what I should put here. I didn't label any of the other parameters, so they'll just still show parameter 4, parameter 5, or parameter 6, etc. All I need to do now is scope my policy and save it. And now I have my new policy in my provisioning category. Script parameters let us do something really cool. I took that time zone script and added it to my Jamf Pro server without modifying it at all, because it was written to accept script parameters. I can reuse it as many times as I like for different time zones. All I have to do is create a new policy for each time zone, add the same script, and then fill out the time zone value. This is a great way to keep the number of items you're adding to Jamf Pro to a minimum. The third type of tool I'll cover today is dialogs. These are useful not only for displaying a message to your end users, but also requesting information from them. I'm going to show you two ways to make dialogs because each has its own advantages. Let's start with JamfHelper. First, I'm going to use Spotlight to open terminal and get it ready because JamfHelper is a command line tool. Now let's go find JamfHelper. It's a little buried. I find it easy to change my Finder window to 3-column view for this. From my Macintosh HD, I'm going to navigate to Library, Application Support, Jamf, Bin, and I'll find the JamfHelper app. But what we need is actually inside that. I'm going to right-click JamfHelper and choose Show Package Contents, and then go to Contents, Mac OS, where I'll find the command line tool and drag it into terminal. At the end, I'll add -help and press return. This shows me everything I need to know to use JamfHelper. I'm going to open my code editor and let's start a script. Because the path to JamfHelper is so long, I'm going to put it into a shorter variable name called just JamfHelper. Now here's a nice trick to get the correct path name. I'm going to right-click JamfHelper and point to copy, but then I'll also press the Option key to let me copy its path instead. In my script, all I need to do is paste the path between my quotes. From here on, to call JamfHelper, I just need to put a $sign in front of my variable name, JamfHelper, and wrap it in double quotes. Now, let's see what JamfHelper can do. I want to add some options to JamfHelper. The first one is to define a window type. It supports 3. We'll see what they look like in just a moment. For now, I'll add dash window type to my script, and I'll choose HUD. The backslash at the end is letting me wrap what would normally be a very long command onto multiple lines, just to make it easier to read. Now I'll add heading, and notice that what I put after dash heading must be in quotes. I'll add a description. It also has to be in quotes. All right. Then to make this dialogue a little bit more visually interesting, I'll add an icon. So I have to choose an icon and put its path here. And I'll put it in quotes too, just in case the path contains any spaces. So in the Finder, I'm going to command click the Windows title bar and go all the way back to Macintosh HD, and then navigate to System, Library, Core Services, and now I'm going to locate the Finder app. I'll right-click the Finder, choose Show Package Contents, and then Contents, Resources, and then select the Finder icon file. Just like I did with the path to JamfHelper, I'll right-click the Finder icon, hold the Option key and copy the path, and then I'll paste that into my script. Let's try it out. I can run my script directly from my script editor. When I do, I get a very simple dialogue, but this isn't the one I'm interested in. I'm going to change the window type from HUD to FS, which stands for full screen. Now I'm going to run it again. A full screen dialogue like this is a great way to prevent the person in front of the computer from using it while it's provisioning. It can also update to inform them of progress as tasks like installing software run behind it. If at any time you need to see what's happening behind the dialogue, just press Command Q to quit. Next, let's look at another tool that can display dialogues. The osascript command is a way to run another scripting language called AppleScript from the command line. And it's AppleScript that will actually be creating these dialogues. I'm going to show you something it can do that JamfHelper can't. First, I'm going to create my command for a choose dialog, and I'm going to include 3 department names. I have to use double quotes to begin and end this command, but I have lots of double quotes as part of the command too. For these to work, I have to add backslashes in front of those in the middle of them to treat them as literal double quotes, not the double quotes surrounding my command. The next part of my command lets me add a message to display to my end user, explaining what we're getting ready to do. And the last part of the command lets me add a title to the dialog window, plus I'm putting my closing double quote at the end. This line actually tells osascript to run the command. And then it's going to put the result into the department variable. Last, I'll echo the department variable to show what we select in the picker, and then we'll test running the script. Here, I'll choose accounting, And as the script is finishing, it echoes my choice here. AppleScript and osascript can do a lot more with dialogs, but this one might just give you some ideas. Now, what can we do with everything we've covered? Writing text to a file, using script parameters, and making dialogues. Here's a script that you can find at the end of this presentation. I've added this to self-service as a method to let an end user provision a Mac by choosing his or her department. Here's what the script does. First, it gets the login user's name, full name, and it'll use the full name in our osascript prompt to choose a department. Another osascript here is going to ask for the asset tag of the computer. This line here in the script will set the time zone for all computers, and then it'll evaluate the chosen department and install the necessary software. Once the software is installed, it'll run an inventory update that'll include the asset tag, department, and username of the computer. And then it'll create a folder in library for administrative tools and information, and it'll leave a provisioning receipt behind. Finally, it'll reboot the computer. Let's see what this all looks like. I have self-service open, and I'll start the process by clicking the provision button. I'm going to choose kiosk to make this a quick provisioning, and then I'll enter the asset tag. Now the JamfHelper screens prevent me from doing anything with the computer as it installs settings and software behind it. I've greatly sped up this video, so this is in actual time. And I've also added a few more items to the script to display some additional screens here. When provisioning is done, the computer reboots, and the Mac is back at the login window, ready to go. After I log in, my software is installed, and I see my provisioning receipt in the library folder. When I view the computer record in Jamf Pro, my asset tag is populated from the osascript dialog where we input the asset tag. And the username field is populated, which allows me then to do an LDAP lookup and pull in additional information such as email address, phone number, user principal name, and other details from Active Directory. And that's it. We discussed how to do 3 very specific things, and then we put them together to accomplish the more complex task of using self-service to provision a Mac. In just a moment, I'll provide you a link to a few resources, including the sample script, so you can examine each piece, take it apart, and experiment on your own. A provisioning script like this can include so much more, but it can still accomplish a lot with just the few commands that we put into it. As you keep scripting, don't forget, all Jamf customers have access to our entire training catalog with more than 15 hours of short how-to videos that cover everything from help desk to engineer to administrator with basic and advanced courses. I encourage you to check out the scripting series with 15 modules and video lessons that each take less than about 30 minutes to complete. This will help you keep learning how to script. From there, explore the open source community on github.com. Open source software is free to use, and you'll find hundreds of scripts and projects on Jamf's GitHub page at github.com/Jamf. And if you want to see a lot of examples of short and long scripts for a variety of needs, check out my gist repository on GitHub. This is where you'll find the sample provisioning script and some of the other code that I used here too. I've written many of these scripts for customers and my own use. Practically everything here is a real-world example of something I've used before. Many of them are made to use as they are, or they can be adapted to use with Jamf Pro. Thank you everyone for attending today. Before we conclude, I'd like to say Jamf also offers more to help you be successful. Our professional services offer on-location or remote services to customize Jamf Pro for your environment. That's what I do here at Jamf every day. We also offer certification courses led by our training team. Become an expert in Jamf Pro and widen your skill sets. Finally, we have world-class support from Apple experts across the globe. We even offer 24/7 support with our premium support packages. Thanks for joining us today. If you missed something in the presentation, we'll email you a link in just a few days.